I'm not saying this. How many people were?
Not, it wasn't huge. I don't know.
Probably get your rights of half time.
Okay. I got a family.
I don't see a problem. Yeah, it's time.
Linda 60. Yes.
That's the only one. That's not much cost, basically, many things. Same as 2025.
Oh, yeah, that. Oh, big. That's.
They put it up the.
Oh, they were right.
Call the meeting. Please stand for the pledge.
Kathy Macho,
Here.
Tom Graham,
Here.
Wendy Reeve,
Here.
David Melky,
Here.
and Jeannie Benjamin.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Anybody, any citizen comments tonight?
Linda Rockwitz, 519 East Third Street. Just a couple quick things. First of all, I want to thank you all for serving because I don't think people understand how much time and commitment it takes. And I say this tonight because I always print the agenda because I can't read off the screens. And I look at how many pages are in the packet. I don't usually study them, but there's often over 100. And so it's a huge commitment and I thank you for making it. And my second thank you goes to Kyle for closing Judd Hill. I use it all the time in good weather. I go up to the pool and up whatever. But there's no need in the winter for that cost. And so I hope you get a lot of positive feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Done.
Anyone else at this time? Can I get approval for agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Jeannie Benjamin,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
and Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Consent agenda is all kind of approved. We go to discussion items. Personal committee formation discussion, can you do a little bit on that, Kyle?
Yeah, we gotta approve
We
the
gotta-
consent agenda yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, that'll pay the bills.
I moved, we approve the consent agenda.
Second that.
I have one question about the minutes.
Yes, actually, I have two statements on that.
Okay, I just noticed in the beginning, it said Kyle is the police chief, and then throughout the minutes, it's referred to as interim city manager, so I don't know if that matters or not.
I'll correct that. I made corrections that Wendy had caught. Mr. Baker's first name now is Cora.
Yeah, I saw.
And
I knew
I
there
didn't
was,
put in there where Chip Everest had been put in as an alternate for the CBA. And those have been corrected.
Thank you.
could I redo that?
No.
Okay,
Motion as amended, as corrected on the minutes. So I got a motion and I need a second. Pam Graham,
That's it.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve,
yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, ready, Mr. Mayor? We'll move on to 4A, Personnel Committee Discussion and Development. So at the December 15th meeting, we discussed establishing a Personnel Committee, reference to possibly fill in some positions, for example, the parks, to at least have a discussion on what direction we want to have. I did some research on that. And in the agreement, section 10, it says complaint, that was the only spot where we refer to a personnel committee, so it doesn't define who the members should be. I feel it was my recommendation that we should establish a personnel committee comprised of the mayor, a city council member, the city attorney, the clerk, and the city manager to just discuss, for example, the Parks and Rec director, that position, and how council wants to pursue that position. If you want me to instantly replace the Parks and Rec director, if we want to look at something, but somebody besides just my decision, especially since I'm going to be here momentarily, that I feel like it would be a good idea to have more people involved in that decision to give a recommendation back to council. That's sort of my thoughts on it, and that's up to you folks. And also, before I forgot to, Happy New Year to everybody.
I think it's a good idea. It seems to me there've been a couple of other times. I think I may have asked Jim Reamer a time or two. Isn't there a personnel committee and who is it? And we didn't have a lot of luck finding anything, so.
There's been a personnel committee in place for, many years. I'm not sure how active it's been for the last couple of years. But traditionally, it has been involved in issues that may come up with employees in City Hall or elsewhere within the city, and personnel committee can sometimes deal with some of those issues that helps the manager at managing. That's basically the way it kind of works. And especially having a council member or two on it is helpful, I think, in terms of guiding the manager and so forth. And nothing this personnel committee can do is determinative. It makes no decisions that are binding city. All it can do is make recommendations. So it's a useful committee.
Okay.
And I feel it would maybe open some transparency that the city manager, whether it be myself or somebody else, isn't just saying, this is who I want, this is what I want, at least get input down the road.
Is it, I mean, I like the idea of a committee. I guess I was, do we need to establish that it be the mayor and a city council member, or should we just say, I don't know how much the mayor wants to do this, and I didn't want to put him in a hole, and I fine. So I was thinking, do we want to just say two members from the council and mayor.
I'm open to what you guys would like on that. Does it?
That's my
Does
only
it have to be
real
the,
question.
does the mayor have to be in that committee?
No,
So if we want to have 2 council members and the other 3 of us, that would work as well, depending on how much involvement the mayor wants.
You can gladly you. Those are people that have to do that, come up, raise your hand.
I would be interested in being on personnel committee.
So my recommendation, if the mayor is willing to forego his position, is for you to decide what 2, I feel like 2 would be an adequate amount. It'd have to be,
Yeah,
but to
yeah.
not have the open meeting act
Yeah.
violation. Right, so that's why it can only be 2.
Any other hands?
Do we? In a, we need to vote to establish this, and generally there are 2 council people on it. Do we have to name the council people tonight? Because you're gonna want to,
I think we should.
I do too, and
Okay.
because I would
We
actually,
should meet.
I would like to get this rolling as soon as possible.
okay,
You're in, Kathy? Thank you.
sure, I'll,
Ms. Reed says,
I don't understand the parameters of this, because there's only 5 of us, so it's not like we're cumbersome or it's gonna take up a lot of our time to do it ourselves. So I'm not quite sure why we would form a subcommittee of ourselves to do what all of us are appointed to do anyway.
I think that the reasoning is because we technically don't have any say in who we hire or when we hire, because that's all the job of the city manager. That's the administrative part of it. So by including 2 city council members to discuss some of these things, it would give council more of a say.
that's my goal, Ms. Reed says, just like, if I could tomorrow hire a parks director. And that would be the way it would be. And my goal of this is the fact that to make it more transparent and to get some more involvement from council. And by allowing that dialogue, I feel it opens it up a little bit more and gets sort of your pulse of what that position should have, whether it's the parks or whether it's the DPW or whether it's the police chief. It's like, as I told Emily today, in a year and a half or so, you're gonna be close to my position. And it's like, I think it would be good for 2 of you, at least to get that dialogue going instead of, and it could be done in an open forum like this, in a meeting as well. But at least we could get that direction. But I'm open to anything.
Just for reference, I'm on lots of different boards and commissions, and they all have personnel committees, finance committees, budget committees, yada, yada, yada. So the personnel committee that I'm on at the sewer authority will vet out new employees. If we get 25 applications, instead of having 10-hour council meeting, we'll get it narrowed down to ones that are actually qualified, or what the case may be. Then you guys, as a group, go from there.
it seems to me we looked at the, one time when I chatted with you about the personnel committee, weren't there some things in the city manager's agreement perhaps that wasn't it a personnel committee that was supposed to be doing like a review didn't it say that in one of the contracts? So I think that was another reason for it was, or am I remembering something incorrectly?
I think the personnel committee was kind of there as a buffer between the city manager and employees, and if somebody had a problem or something, that it could be considered by the personnel committee. That's my memory of it, but beyond that, I don't think there's much more, relationship between personnel committee and the manager and its employees.
Okay.
And regardless of what the personnel committee recommends to the full council, it's still you guys' decision as a whole.
Yes, sir.
One podium, slow, like Carter Williams, 355 East Bay Street. As you think about this, just may make sense to just double check on the OMA. So you just keep track of the committee. I don't know that you need to report on it, but an additional issue is if you look back through some cases we've had on dismissals. I think the process by which we fire people, in the recent court case is not normal. And I encourage you to maybe have the scope include what the HR policies are so that they follow what is modern law and modern practice. Instead of getting ourselves in a situation where someone gets fired and it turns into a lawsuit.
Anybody else at this time?
I move that we establish a personnel committee comprised of two of the 5 members of the city council, city attorney, clerk, and city manager.
I'll second.
Are we going to specify in the motion who those 2 members of council are, or
Oh,
is
That's
council
up
going
to
to
you.
direct at the time it's needed?
I don't care. Oh,
I think we need to pick 2 tonight.
oh, you want that in the motion then?
I think would probably be appropriate.
I mean, I think there's a lot going on that we should, if we're gonna establish it, they should.
I think we should go with the motion first and then appoint.
That's fine.
Yeah, we can make a motion to
Okay.
establish the personnel committee.
And
And
then,
I mean, even if you wanted to tonight, you can make a motion to appoint whoever it may be. And then that can be changed, but go
At
ahead.
that point is that if we have an issue, like right now, I feel like our issue is a person record. Let's say, as Mr. Ramer said, we have an issue with a disappointed employer, as Mr. Williams said. That way, we might have to establish different people depending on what involvement they might have. So I think the motion to whether to have it or not have it would be a great way to go. And then determine, based case on case, to determine what 2 are gonna sit on it. That would make more sense, because it might be something where in 5 years, a different council member might have a lot of expertise in whatever it might be. And why do we want to just handpick 2 people?
So if I understood you, we're gonna form the committee, but we're gonna appoint no one to it until we, as needed basis.
That would, I think that would work. Or I'm saying I need this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the
So
pressing,
for that.
there are
one-
pressing issues.
And Mr. Ramer said, we have a personnel, we've had it in the past, but is it sort of like, I guess, formally establishing it? Or we've already established it, Mr. Ramer?
Well, I think it's been, I think it's been legally formed, by a motion of the council at times, but it just has in recent years not been as active. And so I think, a motion to establish this committee would be a good idea. And I think that tonight you should appoint two members of the council to it. That'd be my advice.
Did anybody second?
I did.
Okay.
I have a second. So the motion right now is to establish the committee of the 5 people.
Yeah.
Do we want to amend the motion to include, or do we want to just let it sit as
You're
motion?
gonna make
We'll
another
do a
motion.
separate motion.
So roll call to set the committee. Wendy Reeve,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Tom Graham.
Yes,
Kathy Macho.
Yes.
And Jeannie Benjamin.
Yep.
Motion carried.
So we need to determine,
I'll make a motion that Kathy and Jamie are the 2 council members for the current committee of farming, put them back together.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh.
Motion by Mayor Graham, second by Councilperson Benjamin to appoint Macho and Melky. And I will take the roll call. Tom Graham,
Yes,
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Jamie Member. You can do it again if you want. Jeannie Benjamin. Yes. And Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
I appreciate that.
We'll have a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, tomorrow.
No, no,
we all need more committees and more meetings.
I don't know about that.
and we need more 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't think so.
And everything.
We'll move on to 4B, the Walsh Municipal Services City Manager Recruitment Discussion. At the December 15th meeting, we approved the Walsh recruitment services. And then there was some discussion after that, references some controversy. I've spoke with Mr. Walsh, and he actually was on Zoom on multiple occasions. He provided me, and I included in the packet, all several of his evaluations when he was at Meridian Township. And I've been in contact with him. I just want to make sure that everybody's in agreement. A couple of things that I'll say. I know that one of the correspondence that I put in the packet was in reference to him recruiting somebody for that Rachel Selinsky gave him a high recommendation, and she was associated with the RRC when it was here in Harbor Springs. And I understand that might be a concern, but I did my homework on that. MML has recruited 31 different city managers that are also associated with the RRC. DHS has recruited 10. The Traino's recruited 13. Here's a list. There's 180 some municipalities in the state of Michigan that are associated with the RRC. All these companies, and I could probably go through all 10 of them, and they've all recruited people that were in the RRC. So I don't buy it. I understand concern, and I know that the RRC is not a good word around here. They've all recruited. They've all been involved in companies that are involved in the RRC. So I don't think that we should put any stake on that. When I did that homework, Mr. Walsh is on. If he wants to talk, or if you guys have any questions of me, that I feel like is your guys' recommendation of how we proceed. We voted on him. He's currently, and I included that, he's currently the county administrator for Branch County. So he is doing 2 jobs. When I spoke with him today, because Ms. Mato approached me about that. I want to make sure, is he solely obligated to this? And he does have a full-time job. When I spoke with him today, he advised me that Branch County is well aware of it. They basically negotiated his contract that he can do both. And I don't have any reason to doubt that he would do a good job for us. But you guys wanted it brought back to me, and I will ask him to unmute. And if you have any questions of him or I, there he goes. Feel free to ask.
What do you mean do 2 jobs? I mean, he wouldn't be full-time here, you're saying?
No, he'll recruit a city manager for us, but he also has another job.
Oh, sure.
And he's recruited several good city managers in different, while doing both jobs.
We all do work in one job for the other one. Jim never does any city work, I don't think.
But
I just wanted to ask if, while we had him on Zoom, if there was anything, and this is up to everybody, not just me. Does anybody have any questions, or should we ask it? Is there a statement he'd like to make other than what's in here?
Frank, are you there?
I am.
The question asked is, do you want to make any statement?
I would appreciate that. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to come back and address this issue. I've had many years of service in 3 different communities. I've had 34 good years, and I had 9 months that didn't go very well. And I had a couple of difficult personnel issues. I'm not going to go any further into that because no one's here to share the other side of that, but I could have done better in those, and I learned from those. The board stood by me. As a matter of fact, when I left there, they asked me if I'd stay on and work on the budget, which I did. They asked me to stay on and manage a fundraising project for a new community center, which I did. They asked me if I would help them recruit a new manager, which I did. One of the people that I helped quietly behind the scenes is the new manager there, and is doing a great job. And right now I'm actually planning, unfortunately, we just lost the township supervisor to cancer about 3 weeks ago, and I've been asked to plan the memorial for her. The township treasurer just retired November 1st, and I was invited back to the dinner, and was actually asked to do the toast for him at the dinner with probably 40 or 50 township people there. I have a great relationship with the township board and the community. Invited back to the Rotary golf outing, and there's more and more, but we're big supporters of the food bank there. You know, my company was founded in '97, volunteering for small communities who couldn't afford recruitments. And we did that for 3 or 4 years at no charge to the communities with the support of the city that I was representing at that time. The next 5 years we pooled, and I share this stuff because I'm not a boaster. I'm not an ego person. I've lived my life very humble like I was raised. But sometimes when you're backed into a corner, you want to share the other side. You want to explain who you are. The next 5 years, we used all of our proceeds and put $40,000 together for a scholarship fund for low-income residents of Benton Harbor and St. Joe. We have a long history of trying to do the right thing with our company. The 1650 group in Michigan, which is 16% of all Michigan managers, are female, and the other 84 are male. And there's been a big push in the last 10 years to increase the number of female leaders in Michigan. Our firm has excelled in that, and we've placed over 20 females in the last just in the last 6 years. So we're proud of what we've done. And I know there's questions about what happened there. I had it in my contract in Radian Township to do recruitments. The board themselves changed my contract 3 times while I was there in 10 years to increase the number of recruitments that I can do per year. I was not operating my business out of the office. That all came about in 2020, 2021 when there was Zoom. And more clients wanted to Zoom rather, obviously, then you couldn't get together. So the supervisor gave me permission. And by the way, I use my own vacation time. I turn back 5 days of vacation every year out of my bank to account for any personal time that I use during the day. And the board if the board thought that I was mistreating people, if the board thought that I was conducting my business out of my office, I realized there were a few people who didn't want me to be there anymore, and I moved on from that. But if they thought any of that, they would have asked me to do their budget, manage the project, and keep inviting me back to the community. And then I decided to, right after this happened, the city of Kalamazoo contacted me within 4 weeks after it happened. And they said, hey, we want you to recruit a position for us. I said, you realize what just happened? They said, yeah. I said, what position is it? And they said, our HR director. And I said, wow. I said, I'd be happy to. And so they said, we trust you, we know you. And I've done 7 recruitments since then. And I'm currently doing the South Lyon city manager. And by the way, we have a great crop of candidates. And I believe with me being in the business and having a job in the business, like in 2 weeks, we're all going to be together. And that's why it's important for Harbor Springs, whoever you go forward with, have your recruiter ready to go soon, because in 2.5 weeks, 250 potential candidates are going to be together at the winter conference. And it's important to have your recruiter, who's ever your recruiter there, helping. And because I've recruited a number of people at these conferences, and it's important. It's going to be an important part of this recruitment. But I guess I would leave with, our company started in a humble means. We've given many of our profits back to communities, paying off kids' lunches at school districts. I was raised in a humble setting, and that's how I've tried to live my life. And now I'm in Branch County, and I forwarded my first year evaluation here. And it included an extension of my contract, the ability to recruit, a small raise, and most importantly, was a testament that the board said about how I treat people and how I've created a team building and fostering of teamwork within the building. And that was more important than anything to me. I care about how I treat people. I really do. And that's about all I can say about my last 35 years of municipal work and my last nearly 30 years of running our business. I appreciate your time. And the one thing, regardless of how you move forward, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to explain that I'm not defined by that 1 or 2 articles back in April of 2024. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Frank. So when I spoke with them today, the city managers conference is January 20th through the 23rd at the Grand Traverse Resort. So he expressed to me that he would, regardless of who we choose, he feels it's very important to have somebody in place by that time, because he plans on doing recruitment at that conference for this position, if he's chosen. And I think it's important to get the ball rolling.
Was. I'm looking at the contract. Is this something we have, then we need to agree to? Assuming we want to go ahead with Mr. Walsh, we need to approve this contract tonight, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. There were, I had a couple of questions, and maybe it's because this came up in all the different things that we looked at, that one part of it that seemed important to me was, for whoever was doing the recruiting, for us to be talking to the council and to maybe you and other cities about qualifications that we were interested in. And I don't see that specifically
In the contract.
in the contract. And I mean, I see the good faith effort to conclude the search by March 1st, which is, I appreciate trying to do it that quickly, but if there's a step or two that we need that's not in here, I'd like to be sure we allow time for that and not hold them to that date.
And
Think too, this was assuming that this was gonna be signed in December,
Yeah.
correct, that was correct,
and now it's January.
yes. So, this, Mr. Walsh, can you unmute yourself?
If I may,
So,
that's
ahead.
included. That's included, and I appreciate the comments that were just made about the qualifications and all of that. That's all included in my RFP, and we actually do a survey that we do, and yes, it's going to take beyond March 1st now, and we don't rush anything. But the one thing is, in 2 weeks, I won't need any qualifications or all that. You have a beautiful community, and if I put together just a 2-page, and by the way, I've had a couple of candidates reach out to me already to have discussions about Harbor Springs, but I've made it clear I can't have those discussions just yet because we're not just prepared. But candidates are interested. But what I'm saying is, in 2 weeks, you'll just have a little 2-page beautiful pictures of Harbor Springs coming soon. And it will only have that information and then get people's juices flowing about Harbor Springs, and the details will follow later.
So we won't be shooting for that March 1st date, as far as, everybody here, including you, Mr. Walsh, are good with sending it out a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think he originally said 90 days.
Yes, that was it.
My only issue with the contract is he has a 1-year guarantee and it's not listed in the contract, so I'd like to add it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. If you go to, there's a sentence in there, and you're making good points. Maybe I should spell this out. But there's a sentence in there that we will do everything that's included in the RFP submitted on such and such a date. So you have that in the document, and the guarantee is in there. Thankfully, we haven't needed that in 4 or 5 years, but yeah, if you want to put that in there, that's fine, but it is covered. It's covered already in the RFP, which is in the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Do you
So,
want a motion?
yes, please.
I
We already voted to
Right.
sign him, but I feel like one more time.
Yeah, I move to go forward and sign the contract usually using Walsh Municipal Service.
A second.
No, I know that it's motion. Could I add to that to authorize the interim city manager to enter into that contract?
Yep.
Okay, that motion second, Kathy Macho.
Oh, okay, no discussion, huh? Okay.
If you have more discussion, do you have more discussion?
No. We just jump right in all the
No.
time.
Go ahead.
Yes. I'm in favor. I'm fine, since nobody has.
Oh, we kind of did it in reverse.
I think you're right.
Jeannie Benjamin,
Yeah.
Wendy Reed,
I think we made the right choice the first time, and I think the citizens who have been so invested in this, that they are reaching out to point things out, but I still think we made the right decision, so yes.
Thank you. Mayor Graham
Yes,
and Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We just gotta get. A lot of correspondence. to put in here.
Just go to the bottom and start back up.
All right, 4C, subcommittee rules and consistency. Again, on the December 15th meeting, council asked for further discussion be made in reference to subcommittee rules and consistency across all boards. They're generally said to be advisory committee created by council, a board, or a commission to assist with focused review of specific issues. They do not exercise independent authority, but rather report recommendations back to the full unit for discussion and decision. In reviewing the bylaws of board and commissions, I looked quite a bit. The only spot that I found where reference to subcommittees was in the planning commission, where it says the chairman shall be the ex officio member of that committee. So then I did some more work, and to begin, this will be an option for all boards that the chairperson be involved in that committee. But it's a discussion that you folks wanted, so I'm sort of opening up to you in what direction you want to pursue this.
I think there's also wording in the parks bylaws for subcommittees, which are this, I think it's the same as what planning commission says.
So from my understanding, the discussion on this was going to be to try to establish a foundation for all the committees, whether it's the chairperson be a member or what we want out of subcommittees. And I'm
Yeah,
open to you folks. We can start out with stating that the chairperson would be involved in that subcommittee. I think that's a good thing to have,
I think so.
so
whether it's the zoning or the planning.
do we need to state something about whether our subcommittee meeting's gonna be subject to Open Meetings Act, so they have to be publicly noticed?
That's not typical.
Okay. What do you think?
I mean, they don't have to be. If we want them to be, they could be, but I think that, like, I know that Parks has had a couple subcommittees and they use them more as like a brainstorming session to bring things back to the whole board instead of, or like learning about options and then bringing it back to the whole board. So I think, I don't know that I think they need to be noticed to the public, but it would be nice if the times at least were noticed, even if it wasn't like an agenda sent out to the public.
So I can put it here, one thing, each subcommittee might have a different member depending on what subject's being discussed.
Mhm. Is part of this to make clear that some committees can't make, there are no decisions in the subcommittees? Any decisions have to be made at the board or commission level.
Correct, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Potentially, we just need to stress that. Okay.
And I think, I mean, I guess there's not consistency, like, I think Parks and Planning Commission, for instance, when they make subcommittees, they're making subcommittees that are only their members, whereas the DDA has subcommittees and they allow anybody to be on their subcommittees. And I think that in some ways it takes away from, you know, council doesn't have a lot of say in what the DDA does, but we do get to pick their members. And when a lot of their work is being done in subcommittees and council doesn't have a say in who the members are on those subcommittees. Like, is it fair? Should it be somebody that is at least qualified to be on that board, or could it be anybody? And I guess like that's where it kind of came up.
On our application, it says you must be a city registered voter to serve on the Parks Board, Planning Commission, Tree Board, and Zoning Board, except up to 2 non-electors are allowed on the Planning Commission. You must have an interest in downtown property or be a registered voter to serve on the DDA. You must be a property owner and a registered voter to serve on the Board of Review. The Harbor Commission must be comprised of members who use or border the harbor. The Harbor Springs Area Sewer Authority consists of, you must be, but if we appoint everybody to a committee and they break up into subcommittees and allow themselves to put anyone that they want, they then get to go around all of these rules. Which, what is the point of having them if they're going to go around them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's why, you know, the Parks and Planning Commission are both using people that are on their boards. And they're more like a research brainstorming
And they're ad hoc,
committee. Yeah,
and committees should be ad hoc, because there's 9 people on the DDA. If they have 2 committees, they can't have more than 4. And that would mean that the chairperson has to be attending but not participating. Because otherwise you're now violating the Open Meetings Act. So they don't have room to put anybody on any committees who's outside of their appointment unless they have committee members who aren't interested in serving on the boards, or they have board members not interested in serving on the committees, and then I would have to say, then you need to get off.
but they
And-
don't, they don't have a limit to how many people serve on their subcommittees. As long as there's not a quorum of members, so they have additional members,
But that means they're limited to 4.
but they
'cause that
have,
would be a quorum.
well, but they have people who are not on the DDA serving on their subcommittees, so they could have 7 people on one of their committees as long as only 4 of those members are on the DDA.
So that's how the loophole that they get around our
And
appointments.
that's why,
And then they make a
I-
chairperson who is not a
Yes.
city resident of
Yeah.
a committee, who doesn't own property and is not related to a business in town. And the DDA is the only one who's doing this.
I mean, I think that other committees have, other boards have had subcommittees in the past, like I know Harbor Commission did a subcommittee when they were working on the Harbor Master Building. So it's happened on other boards, and it would just be nice if it was standard across all of the boards.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Again, is it okay if I do this, or you want me to?
You have your own mic.
All right, so a couple thoughts here. I think we've noticed in terms of, as we dug through issues and decisions over the last couple of years, that there's an inconsistent understanding of the OMA. Doesn't matter whether you call it a subcommittee, working group, it's really a decision being made. And if you look at the Michigan case with University of Michigan, it really didn't matter whether there were a quorum or not. The manner in which they acted around it established effectively a quorum. So one, it would be good that people read those things to understand it, but I think it would be helpful to be able to have ad hoc committees. The concern then is, was a committee making a decision, or was there a discussion? And then the hassle is, oh, we gotta have minutes and things of that sort. I would encourage you, if you have subcommittees, we have Zoom. Zoom does a very good job of just recording these things. It's transactionally simple. You can just cut a copy of it and have those available to it, so people's concerns about what was discussed, they can just look at it. Zoom's very good at summarizing meetings, so we have the technology now to deal with the fact that people are worried that they don't know what went on, and I personally think it would be helpful to have ad hoc working groups. If the planning commission or the DDA, which are chartered under state law, have meetings, the rules are a bit different and how they've been interpreted are different. And that probably is helpful to think through that a little bit, because if the planning commission creates a subcommittee it has legislative authority, and because it has some legislative authority, it has other rules applied to it in terms of what those discussions are, so there are nuances in this question of do you not need minutes? So that's all confusion, but I think an easy way to deal with this is everybody does it on Zoom, it records it, you let Zoom publish it, you make it available, anybody can look at it and anything, and don't make a damn decision inside of something. And then everybody will be happy, I think.
Yes, sir.
Mark Rondell, 181 Zoll. I think this is all a very moot discussion. I think when you read, Kyle, your description of the subcommittees, it was crystal clear. The subcommittee had no authority to make any decisions. And any recommendations made by the subcommittee would come back to the whole commission or committee as a whole, and they were the ones who were going to make the decision. I don't understand why we're having this long discussion.
Any other comments from the board?
What direction this was brought to me? So what direction do you want to pursue?
Where you're going? What do you think, Jamie? Doug Schmidt.
I would like to see that the subcommittees that are made up on the different boards are members of those boards. And if we want to if council wants to form a subcommittee, like a couple of years ago, we formed the Bluff Committee, then council can choose the people and they can, they reported back to the tree board, but council established that subcommittee. So that's just my opinion.
Is it limited to only people on that board?
I think that the working groups should be only the people on the board, or at least qualified to be on that board.
People qualified to be on that board or members of that?
Yeah,
Because this is I'll just throw this out there. Let's say we have a thing about basketball courts. I'm just throwing this out there. That we're gonna build a basketball court down here.
yeah.
And we do it to the Parks and Recs Committee. And I'm not on the Parks and Recs Committee, but I played basketball and coached basketball my life. And I want to be on that committee. By only limited to the people on the Parks and Recs Committee, you might be limiting yourself to people who have expertise in a field that would be
I mean, they can still
beneficial.
show up to the meetings, they're just not on
Right, okay,
the committee.
okay,
I mean, they're all open to the public, but
yep,
I think that we would avoid some potential issues.
Yep,
If,
the underwhelming,
yeah.
okay. Everybody in agreement? So I
I
think
think so,
just moving
yeah.
forward, we need, Mr. Renner, just move forward as each commission forms subcommittees, they have, unless you want something drafted in writing, they have this in mind, this is how we're gonna pursue this in the future. Does that work?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. I don't think we need a motion or anything, it's just gonna be a general rule, are you all good with that,
Okay. Mhm.
Mr. Mayor?
Subcommittee should report to the committee of the fire.
Yep,
Work back up the chain.
so we're all set with that?
I think so.
Mhm.
All right, so
Great.
we have 15 minutes, I'd like to, because we have to wait till 7 o'clock before we start our zoning code open meeting. So what I'd like to do is just do, I have one city manager thing, we'll get that out of the way. Now, and that way we don't have to do it at the end, take a little break and we'll be ready to roll at 7 o'clock. The only thing I have is that the DDA approached me about the Ice Fest and they wanted to submit their application for the Ice Fest. And they just want to make sure that it's gonna come at the December 19th meeting. They gave it to me or they presented it. I didn't want to put it on this packet because of the fact that number one, I already had to pack it out. Number two, it was gonna be more of this meeting was specifically for the zoning code. But is there any opposition? I'll have that on the next for the Ice Fest because it's gonna occur within like less than 30 days. They are hoping and they'll know tomorrow to get a drone show that will be completely funded. Or if not completely funded, the DDA would come up with the rest of the money for the Ice Fest, one of those nights of the Ice Fest. Just to let you sort of plant that seed. Does anybody have any concerns about Ice Fest as it stands right now. And I will have that application for the December, or for the 19th meeting.
I don't like the Ice Fest except suggested DDA, they put them on them black boxes and they really look nice the day they put them out. But then on Sunday, I think they pick up all the boxes and set them down on the ground, you hardly notice. They look real nice when they're elevated.
I'll reach out to Becky, and she might even be on tonight, but I'll let her know that. I don't know if they can change or not, but I'll let her know.
I think that those boxes are owned by the company, and when they leave Sunday morning, they take their stuff.
I'll follow up with that, just to let her. Anything else? Any other public comment before we take a 13-minute recess before the zoning code? Any council members?
Is there a setting event Parks and Rec is holding at Kiwanis Park?
This weekend, I believe. I talked to Rachel and I believe it's this weekend,
It's January 10th, Saturday.
this Saturday.
Yes.
I keep wondering why we don't see requests for events on public property from Parks and Rec.
I think our policy states that some events are just approved by the parks director and staff, so that's probably why.
I think we should see applications for all events on city property. Just because Parks and Rec has 7 people on a board and a parks director doesn't mean that they own the property that they're holding the event in. We should still see it and approve of it.
I think that we're working on changing the event policy, and so once we change the event policy, we can add that to it. But I think right now this follows what the current policy is.
Yeah. And the reason I'm saying that is you're doing sledding and s'mores, aren't you?
Mhm.
And we had an incident last summer with s'mores, and so I'm kind of surprised that we're doing s'mores again. And that's why I would like to see applications for all events on
I
city
believe
property.
more safety stuff was ordered, but
Okay, I noted it, and in the future, when we update because you're gonna see on the list for the chamber events, you're gonna see in January 19th, a lot of events for the chamber and the Chamber Foundation that will come through as well. But I will talk to Rachel and we'll work on that. Any other discussion? We'll take feedback at 7 o'clock and we'll start the zoning code.
We need to adjourn this.
no, we're just taking a break.
Oh, okay. Now, public hearings is separate.
Take a break.
Take a break, please.
We need a motion, Mr. Mayor. We need a motion to adjourn this meeting. Second that.
Oh, thank you.
Where's the brand?
Yeah, but I'm now. But yeah.
Waters. Oh, great. Yeah.
Already an hour ahead.
I can do the last two, I didn't even have at the end. I'll, just in case. Back to you.
We should have it up on the screen.
So this is.
Well, notable. Oh, you know,
I'm gonna, it's 7 o'clock now. I just wanna, before I forgot to mention, thanks for allowing us to have these meetings at 6. It's been a great start even tonight. We're an hour ahead of where we normally would be, so appreciate everybody being here at 6. I'll turn it over to the mayor.
I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing.
Okay, I'll second.
At 7 o'clock. We do have a full quorum of the council, so public hearing will open at 7 p.m.
Open up to whoever would like to speak in audience. Or the board,
I don't care.
you don't care.
It's up to you.
What we'll do is, Jeff, do you have a plan?
Yep, I'm just moving some files over onto the computer. If you just start one second.
Just a second. Don't get us.
Sorry for the delay. And then where did we want to start? Handing it over to us for some fun and enjoyment here.
Sure.
I think we have Bob Buckner is going to kick this off and kind of MC this for us. And I'll pull up whatever documents he wants on the overhead here for us.
Good evening, Mayor Graham, council members and citizens.
Microphone.
And microphone. My name is Bob Buckner. I reside at 148 West Bay Street here in Harbor Springs. And I'm a member of the Planning Commission. And my role here tonight is to make a brief presentation of the proposed ordinance that was recently approved unanimously by the 9 members of the Planning Commission. With me tonight to help is Jeff Grimm, who you all know, the zoning administrator, and John Michelangeli of Beckett Grader. And what I'd like to propose to council, with your permission, is that we provide a brief summary of each article. I originally thought we'd read the entire ordinance tonight, but I decided against that. Probably wouldn't have gone over very well. So what I think I'd like to do is ask John to provide a brief summary of each article. And there are 15 articles, so John, we need to be brief about this. And as part of John's endeavor, I'd like you to focus on the purpose of each article. Why is it in the zoning ordinance in the first place? What are the topics that are addressed in each article? And specifically calling out anything that might be topical or controversial. There are some issues that are still contentious, and I want to make sure that we address those head on tonight. Jeff is going to follow along with a visual display of each article. And in particular, if there are tables in each article that are relevant to the conversation, Jeff will make sure that we go to those tables or the various germane portions of the ordinance. And of course, the 3 of us will provide embellishment or answer questions as appropriate as we go through the whole process. And then I thought subsequently, after we get through the whole thing, we can open it up for questions and comments. So I'll stop here for a second. And does that sound good? Does that sound like what we should do? Great. So John, with that, what I'd like to do is ask you to start with Article 1 and just give us a brief summary as to why it's in there, what it's intended to do, and anything that's important.
Thanks, Bob. Mayor and City Council, John Michelangeli, city's planning consultant. The proposed zoning code is set up to include 15 articles, which are listed. They start with the intent and purpose, and they go all the way down to the very last article, which is supporting graphics in terms of some graphic illustrations. Well, I'll go through each of the articles. Article 1 is title and purpose. This is based on state statute. Basically states what the purpose of the zoning code is, its area of jurisdiction, which is the city of Harbor Springs, and its relationship to the master plan. And that is one of the primary linkages between the master plan and the zoning code. Zoning needs to be based on the community master plan and its recommendation. Article 2 is the zoning districts and maps. What's a little bit different in the proposed code versus the existing code is the intent and purpose of each of the zoning districts, which there are 14, are listed in one chapter. So you don't have to read through 50 different pages to find out what the intent of the various zoning districts are. They're all included concisely in one chapter for people to review what the difference is between a residential district, a commercial district, and an industrial district and a community district. And the zoning map. The ordinance itself will not include the zoning map. The zoning map, if the code is adopted, the map will be officially resides with the city clerk. The reason for that is if at some point in time a piece of property is rezoned, the zoning map is then changed and given back to the city clerk. So they are always the depository of the official zoning map. So we don't have to change the zoning code and go through a public hearing and adoption process. In addition to the public hearing that would be used to rezone the property. So the zoning map is kind of a separate document that resides with the city clerk's office. The Article 3 regulated uses is a little bit different than what you currently have in the code today. Right now, the existing code has an article for each zoning district. And in that article in the existing code is the intent and the purpose, the uses that are allowed, special approval, and all of the dimensional requirements. The current code is based on what is referred to as a pyramid, because as you get into the existing code, some of the chapters say, well, all of the permitted uses that are located and listed in the previous chapter. So somebody has to go from one chapter to the next, sometimes even through 3 chapters, to figure out exactly what use is allowed in the zoning code. Under the proposed code, Article 3, the regulated uses are in a table. So somebody can look for the use and basically scan over and see what districts it's allowed in as a permitted or special use. The table has 3 designations that are involved. One is P for permitted. That's a use that's permitted by right. S is a use that requires special approval by the planning commission subject to public hearing. And an asterisk, which means if that use has an asterisk, it has supplemental regulations that we have to reference. For example, if you want a home occupation, which may be allowed in a district as a special use, that is also subject to supplemental regulations in chapter 7. So Jeff is going to show you, this is an example of how the table is structured. P stands for permitted. S stands for special use. And if a land use designation has an asterisk after it, it means you have to go to chapter 7 and look up the supplemental regulations for that specific use and its process for approval. The one thing that I want to emphasize that's been talked about in the community and at the planning commission is there are no, and I want to emphasize the word no, land uses in the regulated table that are subject to or eligible for administrative review. If there were, there would be a small a next to the P or the S saying that that use is eligible for administrative review. There are no uses in the regulated table that are eligible for administrative review. All review has to be conducted at the planning commission level. So I wanted to make that clear. Article 3 also has dimensional requirements. So instead of reading text, which is in the current ordinance, in paragraph form, somebody that wants to build a house in a residential district can go to their page, look up their zoning district and get all the information regarding the lot coverage, the setbacks, the location of accessory buildings, lot coverage, dimensions, everything is located in tabular form, easy to read on one page. So you don't have to read multiple paragraphs and try to interpret some of the tables that are in the existing code, which sometimes don't align correctly. So this cleans all that up in terms of the tables. Article 4 is the overlay districts, and we have 4. One is floodplain. The city does have FEMA floodplains along the waterfront and the tributaries, the creek that runs through town. It actually runs over here by City Hall. So we do have floodplains that require special regulations relative to the elevation of the first floor in regards to the elevation of the floodplain. We have a downtown overlay, which has a few extra design components added to it relative to maintaining the character and the scale of the downtown. There is the restricted bluff, which is a carryover from the existing ordinance. And we have a shoreline protection strip, which runs along the waterfront in order to ensure that things like pesticides and fertilizers are not used within 35 feet of the shoreline. Article 5 is general provisions. These are regulations that are citywide. They're not aligned with any zoning district. These things include like how do you grade your property, voting district locations, what is an essential service that they're allowed throughout the city, gas, water, sanitary sewer, fiber optics are essential services. So there's a variety of provisions that are citywide. Another one that we've included in here that's not in the existing code is the use of storage containers, which are now starting to pop up in many communities as outdoor storage facilities. So those are not allowed in the community. So these apply citywide. Article 6 is site development standards. And these include everything that when somebody is going through a site plan review, that they need to be aware of. For example, these are the parking requirements. Again, they're in tabular form, unlike the current code. Other provisions in Article 6 include provisions for loading zones, access management, bicycle parking, landscaping, exterior lighting, which complies with the dark sky standards, stormwater management, and rooftop drains. Those are in Article 6. Article 7, as I mentioned, if you're in Article 3 and you're looking at a land use like home occupations, it's going to have an asterisk and it's going to say you need to reference Article 7 as well. If you go to Article 7, there'll be a provision in there for home occupations that has a few additional requirements that the property owner needs to do in order to comply with having a home occupation. So these are just supplemental regulations for a variety of uses. Article 8 is site plan review. This is a procedure that's authorized under the state statute. The chapter says when a site plan is required. There are 16 standards for approval. There are over 30 site plan requirements that must be addressed by the property owner and their consultant as they're preparing the plan. And we have site plan review procedures, which include the pre-application conference, conceptual review, completeness review, technical review, the administrative review committee, which is not used for land uses, primarily used for minor site plan revisions and the shoreline protection strip and planning commission review. So this is all based on state statute, and it has a sequence of steps that an applicant goes through as part of the review process. And the administrative review committee has been expanded. Under the existing code, the administrative review committee is the city manager, the city attorney, and the chairman of the planning commission. Under the proposed code, it's the city manager, the city attorney, the chair of the planning commission, a second planning commission member, the zoning administrator, and the planning consultant. And their purpose is to review any minor revisions that the zoning administrator feels that he wants to bounce over to the ARC for their input, and for any review that happens along the shoreline relative to the shoreline protection strip. As I had mentioned before, the administrative review committee does not review land uses that are in the regulated use table at all. The site plan review also includes expiration and revocation standards. Once the site plan approved, there is a time frame in which the person needs to pull their zoning permit and their building permit. And if they don't, then they lose their approval and they have to start the process over. And then we also have an amendment procedure that's clearly outlined for insignificant deviations, minor amendments, or major amendments. Minor amendment, an example would be someone has a plan approved with a curb cut for a driveway, and when they're in construction, when they're digging that area up, they may uncover a utility that wasn't appropriately located on the plan, which requires them to shift the curb cut over. That is a minor amendment that would be reviewed by the zoning administrator. And if he feels that he would like the input from the ARC, then he can bounce it over to them. But the zoning administrator, under the way that the statute is set up, has the authority to approve the minor amendments and insignificant deviations. If it's a major amendment to the site plan, it's got to go back to the planning commission. And that's a determination that's clearly articulated in the proposed code. Article 9 is special land uses. Again, these are part of the state statute. In terms of what the application requirements are, it requires a public hearing, the review standards that the planning commission must follow, the review procedures, and again, the expiration, revocation, and reapplication. If an application is denied, the applicant can come back within a certain time frame and refile. Again, all based on state statute. Article 9 is the land development options. This is the plan development. the condominium development, mobile home development, which you currently have, and the open space preservation, which is allowed under state statute. Some concerns have been addressed or articulated about planned development, about the qualifying criteria. In the planned development options, there is an intent and purpose. And the PUD is only allowed in the RA residential ag district, the very west end of town, the RM district, the multiple residential district, residential office, service district, the CBD, the B1 and the B2. It is not allowed in your residential districts. It's not allowed along the waterfront at this time. There are 5 mandatory qualifying standards, plus the applicant has to meet 5 of 7 objectives. So in total, the minimum amount that they would have to address is 10 different criteria, possibly a maximum of 12. So it's a very high bar to go over with the number of mandatory and the other qualifying standards. And there's no acreage minimum. Currently, there is some discussion in the community, and it was recommended by Lene Wills, who's the consultant for the We Love Harbor Springs group, that there be a minimum of 10 acres. The state statute does not have any limitation on how big a PUD or PD has to be. 10 acres is typically found in a township. And why is that? Townships basically are 6 square miles, 36 sections, 23,000 acres. A 10-acre PUD in a township is extremely small. A 10-acre PUD in a city the size of Harbor Springs is almost non-existent. So one of the things that we took a look at, hit the next slide, we ran based on the county's equalization records. We did a sorting by acreage. There is only one parcel that is privately owned that is over the 10-acre site, and that is over in the RA district. And Jeff and I think that the equalization department typically as part of their GIS also many times includes as part of the acreage, the right of way, which is really exempt from calculation. We think this could be that there is no 10-acre parcel in the city that could be used as a PD, which limits the city's opportunities for creative and innovative development. So we really need to think about that 10-acre minimum. In many small communities, there is no minimum, and to allow for creative infill and new development on smaller properties. You do have a piece of property that's vacant at 10 acres, you have another one around 6.5. But as I mentioned, the state statute has no minimum. 10 acres is typically found in a township. Municipalities do not necessarily include minimum acreage on PDs. So go ahead. The development process, I want to emphasize this. Planned development, if they meet all of the qualifying criteria, then goes to the application process. As part of the application process, there's a public hearing at the Planning Commission. If the Planning Commission, regardless if the Planning Commission approves or recommends denial, the application still goes to the City Council, who has the approving authority. Planning Commission then conducts its own public hearing. So at a minimum, a planned development is going to go through 2 public hearings. One to get a recommendation, the second one, does it get approved or denied? If it's approved by council, then the planned development is subject to a PD agreement, which is executed by the city and the developer, and it's filed at the Emmett County Register of Deeds as part of the parcel, because that's a contract for development between the city and the developer. Article 11 is the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, all based on state statute. Talks about the membership, the organization, the applications, and the appeal types. The appeal types are all outlined in the state statute. They include an administrative appeal. If someone disagrees with Jeff's interpretation, they can appeal that to the ZBA. They can appeal an interpretation of the zoning districts, interpretation of the zoning code itself, and variances. And we do have two types of variances, dimensional, which are setback or lot coverage. If somebody wants to build closer to their side yard property line, they may have to get a dimensional variance by the zoning board of appeals. A use variance, a property owner under state statute has the right to come in and ask the ZBA for a use variance on a specific piece of property if they meet qualifying conditions by the zoning board of appeals. Next article is 12, which is administrative and enforcement. This basically talks about the role and responsibility of the zoning administrator, the ability for the city to charge fees for applications, which currently do, the ability to issue required performance guarantees on projects to make sure that everything that was approved in the site plan is built per plan. Talks about the zoning permit process and violations and penalties. Again, this is all based on state statute. Article 13 is administration and enforcement. This is the amendment process that falls back on the state statute in terms of how do you amend the zoning code, go through public hearing, etc., publication. It talks about conditional rezonings and severability. That severability is if a provision of the code is found to be invalid, it does not invalidate the balance of the code. Article 14 is definitions A through Z. I'm not going to bore you with all those. And Article 15 is the supporting graphics in terms of, what is the setback, what's lot coverage, how the building height graphically delineated. So all 15 articles are put together, they make up the proposed code. Looking up that.
Yes, well done. In 23 minutes, that's awesome. So, I think what we should do at this point in time is open it up for comments or questions. Council, do you have any comments or questions?
I should just, excuse me, Bob, I want to let council know that as part of the process, Planning Commission has reviewed submittals that have come in through the We Love Harbor Springs group through their consultant, Lene Wills. And a fairly detailed review was conducted by her in the beginning of November. And she submitted letters to the Planning Commission and to the city, which were reviewed by the PC. I went through her suggestions, which was I considered it a peer review. And I prepared an 8-page memorandum, which was dated in November. And I provided that to the Planning Commission and what I thought was agreeable provisions, and quite a few of them I didn't have a problem with at all. There were clarifications or grammatical errors that needed to be fixed. The Planning Commission did not. The Planning Commission reviewed it. They understood in agreement what the summary of the memorandum is, but they decided not to make the revisions to proceed with the October edition, which is currently subject to the public hearing. Subject to city council direction, I'm more than happy to make all of those changes that are in that memo as part of the final ordinance. The second thing that I want to point out, I think Bob or Jeff handed out a memorandum that I wrote today regarding administrative review. There has been some misunderstanding about it. So I took a look at what the community's comments were, some of the Planning Commission discussion, and I prepared a slight revision to the Administrative Review Committee provisions that talk specifically about that their authority would be to take a look at minor amendments if referred to them by the zoning administrator. They would be responsible to take a look at shoreline preservation strip. And the one thing that's not included in the provision is that the ARC does not have the authority based on the current code, the proposed code, to take a look at land uses in terms of site plans. So I just wanted to provide a little bit more clarity to section 8.5.5 in terms of addressing some of the issues that have been talked about publicly or at the last Planning Commission meeting. So with that said, I just wanted to give the council a brief that I am happy to make the additions on the memorandum, the 8-page memo, and make the addition on the Administrative Review Committee if the council so authorizes me to. I'll have that ready and have the updated code for you by your next council.
The 8-page memo that you're referring to, that's the one that you had in the packet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I also in the packet put several letters that were submitted to me over the last week, just so that you know.
And I also think to piggyback on your comments, I think we found that the comments and suggestions by Lene were pretty helpful. And I think to a very large extent, it makes the ordinance that we're presenting to you tonight a better ordinance. There are things that we just have a genuine difference of opinion on, but it's a matter of opinion. It's not, I don't think it's it's a technical issue. So from the planning commission's perspective, there was no pride of authorship here. If Lene had a good idea, we wanted to incorporate it. If we didn't agree with her, we didn't incorporate it. So what's that? So questions from council?
I'd like to talk about the parking requirements of the CBD, what they were in the past and what are proposed now.
Let me provide a little bit of history on that, because parking in the central business district in the 10 years that I've been here has consistently come up for discussion. And if we look at the history of it, 10 years ago, parking restrictions were more intensive than what they are even today in the code.
What are they today in the code?
Well, right now in the code, we have language that states that, as an example, for a retail space, I believe that they need 1 parking space for each 300 square feet of area. And if you were to transition that space from retail to restaurant, your parking requirement doubles.
I'm familiar with what it used to be, yes.
Yeah. And we have some language that was added at some point to reduce some of those parking restrictions. Some of the businesses, when we established these parking requirements, I think it was back sometime in the 70s, I believe. When we adopted those standards, some businesses were granted letters kind of stating that they were deemed to have met them by their on-street parking. Some businesses still have those letters and still use them. Some don't have them anymore. But recently, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, well, I think it's been longer than that now, I should apologize, but we had a downtown business that transitioned from more of a retail use to restaurant use. But there was a difficulty in that building meeting their parking requirements, and they came to the planning commission, and the planning commission made the recommendation. City council at that time made the change where a business transitioning from one use to a different use would not need to meet that extra parking requirement. They also stated that any additional building added to a property, if it was, I think, 10 or 15% or less, would not have to add more parking space for that. We're just getting to the point where there's not much more space left for new parking to be added. If a business was not capable of adding their own parking on site, we had 2 other methods that were outlined either in the zoning code or the city code, that they could lease spaces from some other business downtown. If that other business had excess parking, and we had a couple of properties that were doing that. There was also an option where at some point in time, city council determined that the approximate cost to pave a parking lot was about $16,000 per parking space. And so there was a fund created, Nick, if I'm right, that a business, if they needed, let's say, 2 more parking spaces and didn't have them, they could pay $16,000 per space into that parking fund and be deemed to have met their need. I don't think, Nick, that we've ever had a business downtown.
Not made $1 off it at this point.
Right. And I think that came about when we first acquired the Spring Street property and made an initial determination of how much that would be, and that was a while ago. So parking downtown has consistently been a hot topic throughout discussion. The planning commission, I believe, came to the decision that, private parking and creating of parking lots was a detraction from bringing in new businesses to downtown. And so they actually opted, if you look at the zoning code, we have those parking requirements for parking spots. But there's a line at the top of that that says that that shall not apply within the central business district. So business, in the proposed code, businesses within the central business district would not have a parking requirement.
What happens to the property that was required as parking previously that no longer would be required?
I think the planning commission, and I'm trying not to speak for you guys too much if you want to weigh in on this as well, but I think the idea was that the market would drive whether they chose that it was in the best interest of their business to keep that as parking, to, you know, heighten the dollar of the value of their existing business and the parking they have, or if it was in their best economic interest to convert that parking to some other type of uses, other
But you're saying
buildings.
it's buildable if you wanted to.
It possibly could be, yes,
Possibly, it could be.
could be.
Other question. 30 or 40 years ago, I gave a parking lot to the city. Behind the attorney's title thing, and at that time they agreed I could sell them. I got, I think, 13 parking credits or something like that. And the city agreed to uphold their parking requirements so that people could use those. I don't know how many they used. You know,
No,
sold all 13 to different people, different businesses. That was a long time ago. I paved it and did the curb. And then the city agreed to, this is across from the Legion. The city agreed they paved their parking lot when I did mine, but that took a couple of years, you know how that worked.
Yeah, so the parking lot across the street from across state from the Legion.
Well, that was city owned, that used to be a taxi stand, I'm talking about behind the attorney's title, it's connected to that parking lot.
Okay. Mhm.
I didn't know that.
Was there, I'm sorry, was there a question in there? Or was it,
I mean, what if those parking credits are still good, I'd have to look see who bought them.
I'm just not familiar enough with that to really state one way or the other.
They're going for a long time, really expected all of us. This is my two questions.
No, they're good questions and it's a great discussion. My feeling from sitting in with the planning commission was they felt that they've seen businesses attempting to come into the city. And the parking requirements drove them away to not come. And we were trying to lessen the parking requirements within the CBD to make it more appealable to businesses wanting to come into town.
We seem to have a healthy downtown, I think. All but one storefront, I believe, is occupied.
Are there parking requirements for residential downtown?
No, the parking is exempt, the way the code is set up, parking is exempt in the downtown regardless of its commercial or residential.
So if you build a 4-story condominium development with an office on the first floor, you don't have to provide parking.
That's correct.
Sounds like the planning commission is supporting development rather than just managing it.
To some degree. But to some degree, they don't want to inhibit development. You don't have much property in the downtown left to develop. I think the conversation was why commit what limited property we have to park cars when you could have a viable business for the
Because
community.
you need it, I guess.
And I think I guess another way to look at this is because we are at that parking limit, right? There are no more leasable parking spaces available for somebody to grab. So if somebody wanted to do something with their property that required them to have more parking than what they currently have, would we be comfortable if they purchased another building in town, removed it so that they could add the parking that they need for their project?
Well, Mossberg signed some of its Third Street parking, the Bay Street development.
Yeah, and I think that was done a number of years ago. They had extra parking spaces there. And they've assigned some of those parking spaces to some other buildings, yeah. There's a number of properties downtown that have done that. But again, to my knowledge, I don't believe that there are any of those left.
North side of Third Street could qualify, I think, some of that.
Yeah, I think that those have been used. I don't think that there's any available parking spaces left for lease. I think the last of them were at, I believe, the Methodist Church. And I think that they have leased all those. I'm not positive, but I believe that's the situation as it's been relayed to me.
Just as a practical matter, Tom, 4-story development in the downtown would not be permitted, just to be clear.
I'm comfortable with 2-story. Sounds like we're up to 3 now,
It's 35 feet.
huh? That'll do 3.
Administrative Review Committee is the zoning administrator, the planning commission chair, a planning commission member, the city attorney, the city manager, and the planning consultant. Are they all equal voting members?
Yes.
So how do you break a tie?
When we've had meetings before, it's basically a consensus decision between the group.
I
Well,
feel like,
that could be not happening also.
but I feel like if it's a tie, the motion kind of fails, kind of like if we only had 4 people that showed up at council. And it was a tie, it would be failed.
The couple that I've been in, we've never had an issue. We've talked through the issues and come up with a consensus decision.
Well, we don't have this organization right now.
No, we don't. We just have 3 right now, but we've had situations where we.
I know, I'm thinking you either add one more planning commission member or you eliminate.
Actually,
One
my
person.
recommendation might be the language that we have in the existing code. We have this process in place now. And the way that it's worded in the existing, I think, is something to the effect of if any of the members feel that there needs to be more discussion, one person can trigger it going up to the planning commission. So I would say that we keep that if anybody feels, and the idea is that, you know, if the group feels that there's no need for a more meaningful discussion, to get input, that it's just a simple matter, they would give me the authority to approve it administratively instead of kicking it up for a review by the planning commission. So I would, if we were gonna do something, I might suggest that language, that if anybody feels that it should be kicked up, that it would go. So it would have to be a unanimous decision.
I think that's a good suggestion.
I've heard a lot of concern over the 5,000 square feet too. Is there a way, can we make that smaller?
You can, but it doesn't apply right now. Because the eligibility, there's no land use that's eligible for administrative review committee review.
Okay, but right now, that means it's anything that we need to be concerned of in the future?
Not unless the ordinance is amended to allow a land use to be eligible.
Okay,
Right now, the ordinance doesn't allow anything to be eligible.
okay.
I just add to that as well, Judy. Anything that is going to be reviewed by the administrative review committee has already been approved by.
Yes,
So, yeah,
and that was changed, the wording was changed,
Yes,
so that was
yeah.
better,
absolutely.
yes.
Yeah, that was, it was intended to always be, well, you know, I don't have to
Yeah,
tell you, yeah, so intended to always be that.
You have a comment from the audience? Board member?
Comments in the audience.
Back left.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead and I'll be after you.
Okay. My name is Danny Rogert and I live year round at 480 East Main. Good evening and thanks for holding this public hearing. For the last year and a half, I've been involved in this discussion and I've made no specific request for anything. Nothing added, nothing removed from the zoning code, and I'm gonna keep it that way. My goal has been to support our resident volunteers, bring some stability to the conversation and accountability for those who have used money in Discord to advance their own ideas. Tonight, I continue my call for support of the incredible work of our resident volunteers and the respect of the process that they've undergone. nearly 1,750 hours throughout 4 seasons, 5 town halls, 10 open houses, an online survey, 23 commission meetings, and now 4 public hearings have reviewed every single word of our zoning code and unanimously recommended updates. There are some who have written letters or will speak tonight who would like to replace their judgment for that of the planning commission with their own. Some live here, some don't. They've had over a year to state their case. I trust the judgment of my neighbors on the planning commission, not blindly, but because I've watched them do their work. I know many of you have watched them as well, as they've brought thoughtful discussions to the issues we face, and it wasn't easy. We learned in mid-November that more than $174,000 was raised in 2024 alone to influence the zoning code update. 7 people contributed $140,000. That's a lot. I missed the vote. I haven't collected any money. There are some things to be concerned about in Harbor Springs. The work of the planning commission is not one of those things. They have my sincere thanks for rising above the mess that's been created in the service of just a few. I want to make an additional point. I'm on the Parks. We have a great group of volunteers who spend a ton of their own time not only attending meetings, but fundraising over $1 million in the last few years and volunteering to put on successful events for our fellow residents. I urge the council to redouble your efforts to respect the members of our communities who volunteer their free time in service to Harbor Springs. Council, boards, and commissions, we're supposed to be a team. How you proceed as a council is noticed by our volunteers. We need more residents and to volunteer their time. We need new and younger voices around the table. And I know many, including me, sometimes question if what we're doing is worth the time and the trouble. How we treat each other is important. We have an incredibly talented full-time group of residents that voted for each of you. Many of them are in this room. We may not be millionaires, but we do care very much about the place we live, the place we raise our kids, where we run our businesses, and where we come home to each night. I urge you to give respect to the resident volunteers on the planning commission who have worked hard to unanimously recommend these zoning code updates. Please pass them quickly so we can move on. Thanks.
Good evening, City Council, Garen Goppigan, Houston Road. Yes, first of all, I'd say the same thing. Thanks to the Planning Commission and John. You guys have done a great job. This is so much better than what was repealed, and I think most people are very happy about that. Just to tag on to Jeannie's comment, because I don't think there's clarity because I keep getting questions and I'd like to know myself. You said there wasn't anything, the 5,000 square feet, I think is a concern for people, and you're saying there's nothing that would really approach that now. But can you just clarify if 3 buildings were purchased next to each other and a plan was designed to turn that into something different, demolish those, build something different, wouldn't that then fit into an administrative review situation?
No, because the land uses identified in regulated table are not, none of them are eligible for a administrative review. In fact, what you're talking about, that would be a site plan review that would be required to go before the planning commission for review and approval.
Okay, so I think the questions I get, or maybe even that I have, is there really value in the ARC then? If it's already to the planning commission, what value does the ARC have, particularly as it relates to the CBD?
It doesn't have anything because there's anything in the CBD is not eligible. The only thing that would be eligible for the administrative review committee would be a minor site plan revision, the shoreline protection strip, and that's it, John.
Yeah,
that's it.
So good. So people can feel comfortable that that scenario with 5,000 square feet for a CBD type project is really not something they should be concerned
We
about.
shouldn't be concerned about it citywide. Because there's nothing on the regulated use table that makes any one of those uses eligible for administrative review.
Good.
Another way to look at the administrative review committee is it's replacing functions that otherwise would be done by just the zoning administrator.
So you're getting more input.
You're getting more input from more people instead of one person arbitrarily deciding.
Good, and the planning commission would have already seen it before then anyway.
Correct.
Right.
Good. And we did recognize that there was the way that it was worded before made sense with how we previously had the table and then removing the PAs. We saw that there was some way that it could be misunderstood, and so we've proposed some language to clean that up.
And that kind of coincides with what Lene suggested, I assume. Could you put agreed next to that comment if I remember what you had? So good. So I would say great if we adopt it, but I like the fact that you're saying, hey, with these 8 pages of review, not just as it is now. Or at least for most of those. So thank you, thank you.
Good evening, Tony Johnson, 430 Maple Street, full-time resident and member of the Planning Commission. Mr. Mayor, Council, just like to take a moment to say I've been involved in the Planning Commission now for 2 years. Through the most of this process, it did start before I joined the Planning Commission. It's been a somewhat challenging process at times, but a very rewarding process. The code that was approved by the Planning Commission now 18 months ago and was adopted by Council and then repealed was a great start. I think now in hindsight, we all realize that we've made it better. We've had a lot of public input. There's been more than enough time for input from any interested party. We had open houses, you've heard about all of those. There's been every opportunity for people to weigh in. We've had meetings in summer, in winter, online. I think we've all made compromises. I don't think any one person who's touched this zoning code would say they got everything they wanted, but there's been discussion, compromise, rationalization, and we've come up with a document that is far superior than what we had a year and a half ago, and represents the interest of the residents of the city and other interested parties. So I wholeheartedly encourage you to adopt the zoning code, that we can move on to other discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody else speak at this time?
Is there anybody on Zoom?
There's the hand up.
Oh.
We'll do Karen first and then we'll go to.
Hi, it's Karen Ockfield, West Traverse Township. So what's left? Maybe Jeff's suggestion about adding better language to the admin review, that good little paragraph you talked about. And then the 2 outstanding issues, soft language, objective, subjective in the PD standards. And I know that it may be opinion that you guys don't agree, but Lene Wells, who is another planning consultant, she made a suggestion that we really look at that language and toughen it up. The other one is the heights. I guess it would only be understandable when you look at the home on Main Street that is much taller and broader and bigger than all the other homes. And that has something to do with the height. It's not in my wheelhouse. I don't really understand it. But both those issues were brought forward by Lene Wells. And the community groups that I speak for are asking for the opportunity to allow the Planning Commission and the City Council to work together. I respectfully ask tonight for the proposed zoning code to be returned to the Planning Commission for 1 or 2 publicly noticed work sessions so it can be finished. And that will give us the transparency and the unity that we're all looking for. And thank you for all your time and expertise.
Thank you, Karen.
We have a Chris Heiner online. If you'd like to chime in.
Yeah, thanks. Chris Heiner, 618 East Lake. And I just wanted to also give my appreciation to the Planning Commission for the last year, 18 months of open open meetings, taking input from the community, surveys, special extra meetings. It's been amazing. I think that the draft zoning law, I think is a great compromise. I think they've taken into account feedback from everyone who's wanted to participate for over a year. I would love to see it get adopted and pass. I personally have some remodeling I want to do, and I want to build a garage, and a simplified and streamlined zoning code that's had all the controversial stuff removed. There's no duplexes in there. There's no triplexes. I think it's time for us to get back to normal business and move forward. And I think that this draft is a great compromise, and I would love to see it passed. So thank you.
Waves 355 East Bay Street. I just wanted to circle back on the PDs for this in this discussion overall. So we are changing the zoning, and it's going to affect the town for 50 years. So how do you make that decision? There are lots of decisions where we put legislation in place, there are unintended consequences. The way you deal with it in this particular case is you take examples and you test it against the code. You take things that you maybe don't like, and then ask the question of, if you did that, would it be allowed? Specifically in the PDs, there's a concern that we've raised in terms of objective versus subjective. And the point has been raised, oh, there are lots of discussions that need to go on, lots of decisions that need to be made. A simple, I believe this is accurate, you could, with a PD, build a large facility right up to the lot line, downtown and in areas where we've had residential, if a majority of the PD and a majority of the city council thinks that's a good idea. All it does is really take a majority. They may have to go through 50 decisions. Now, when we have done some construction on the waterfront recently, the waterfront requires the things to be done in keeping with the rest of the town and to minimize the waterfront. At that time, the decision was, oh, we're building a large building here. We don't think that's an expansion. And we think it looks like all the rest of the buildings. That was a subjective decision made by the planning commission and the city council that architects, for example, said wasn't true. It's subjective. So several years ago, we're not sure when, we changed the PD rules to 10 acres. And we limited the capacity of being able to do subjective things. I'm not sure why it was done, but it had some insight into it. And that is that if you start saying you can build them anywhere, then people will figure it out. And what does that look like? The way that looks like is there's a subjective decision being made by a majority of the people on the panel. And the way that looks is somebody wants to build something, threatens to sue you. I've already talked to past council members who said, well, under threat of suit, I made this decision even though I thought it was a bad idea. So that means we take a zoning code that's intended not to give a lot of creativity. We've said this multiple times, we don't want a lot of creativity. We've put the PD criteria in. We've taken what used to have an objective criteria, 10 acres. If you get sued because it's 5 acres, you say it's 10 acres, it's in the zoning, you don't lose the lawsuit. If it's 5 people making a decision, you lose this lawsuit. So the concern on PDs is let's limit the flexibility. If someone wants to do it in 3 acres or 4 acres or 5 acres, Lene was said those are okay conversations to have. But zooming it down to a single house could be a PD. If we honestly think in the next 50 years, someone's not going to try to sue the city council or put pressure on the city council to adapt it, look at what's happening in Aspen. They're lifting homes up and burying down and building two stories down under them so that people have more space. And they're probably doing that under a PD requirement. So finalized point is hold back on the PDs, put acreage requirements on, make sure that there are things that are objective so that future councils aren't put into a situation where they're sued until they capitulate and make a decision. That's what we did before. Let's keep that kind of restriction in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Can I go? Here I go.
You're new here, aren't you?
Hi, everybody, Bill Mulder, 372 West Summit Street. And hard to raise some good points there. And there's another side to each of those arguments that I'd like to make sure that you're aware of. And on the plan development idea, this is an idea that almost every zoning code in every city has. Every single city has felt it's desirable to have a creative outlet, something that would allow us to hear about ideas that can never even see the light of day. And in my survey, even the city of Mackinac Island has a plan developed. So the most historic area that we have in the whole state has this. Every single shoreline town has some version of a plan development. So we want to do not be put off, do not be scared by this. And the planning commission heard a story about a beautiful development on East Lake Street by Dave Kimball. And Dave owned 1.48 acres on Lake Street. And he wanted to build 5 homes. And all he could think to do was to put in a suburban cul-de-sac, which he did not want to do. He didn't like the look of that, didn't think that was great for Herbert Springs. And instead, he came up with an idea that would look like a traditional town green. And I'm sure you've seen this. It's got a very beautiful white wooden fence along Lake Street. It has kind of a pergola or a arbor that looks like you can walk through the fence there. And the neighbors are crazy about it. It's just a beautiful thing. And again, it's 1.48 acres. It's nowhere near 10. And so planning commission heard that story, heard other input, and decided not to put a acreage requirement as a it opened the door for a plan development. I think we do want to get a creative idea. And we're gonna, Vanessa Warren on our planning commission as planner and landscape architect. Her position is that we get better development when we have creative ideas. And if the community wants more input, oh my gosh, the process for this is just intense and incredible. If I were a developer, I can't imagine going through this. But everybody in this audience is going to have input for on development. It's going to be insane. You know, people are just going to say you ought to have, 6-pane windows and not 4-pane windows. What the hell's wrong with you? Why would you think of that? Just going to be crazy. So if you want a lot of input, you're going to have it in this process. You want public hearings? We can make public hearings like crazy in all of this. So do not be scared of this. This is something that is going to be valuable for Herbert Springs. We want it. In terms of subjective and objective, I think the planning commission came down with a mix of both subjective and objective, which is good. If we have all objective standards, that's actually a risk. That takes away a safety valve. So somebody will bring something with some creative writing that says they meet these 7 objective standards, and we've got to approve it. Like, we don't have the chance to push back and to negotiate. And so a mix of objective and subjective is actually a strength. It's something that's going to serve us well. We think we got the right mix there. And that brings me to what your next steps could be. And residents are waiting for us to get this zoning update approved. People are making plans are frozen. I assume people aren't buying houses until they know what the rules are going to be. We are so close, and council could approve this thing. You could decide to approve it tonight. You could say, oh, put in those corrections from John's 8-page memo and put in that new proposed language right there, and you can vote it through tonight. If you don't choose to do that, if you want to see it come back at your next meeting, a new draft, that's great. But there's no value to sending it back to planning commission. With all the hours and hours and days and meetings and everything, it's going to kick us into another cycle of multiple months. And that's not what our residents do. So I urge you to please adopt it tonight with some corrections or at your next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mark Wendell, 181 Zoll. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I'd like to build on what the last two speakers just talked about. And I think I'd like to start by talking to you 5 elected representatives behind the table. And I'd like to emphasize the point that I've said here before, that your decisions that you make when you cast your vote on this subject should not be based on what you hear in the loudest voices out there. At this point, you have been elected to use your subjective judgments to make a decision that you believe to be in the long-term best interest of this community. That's a very broad field. And you can use all that you hear out there to help you inform those decisions. But at the moment that you vote, you are supposed to be casting your vote to what you personally believe is the best course for the future of this community. There are some objective points that have been made. 0 requirement for lot size is a very objective point. It allows for everything. A by right use, a P on the chart, allows for things by right. It does not take freedoms away from people. These are objective things that help you to make decisions. Unfortunately, many of the systems we have in place in this community do not allow right now, give you many objective bases to stand on. But I just want you to remember that when you cast your vote, you are being asked and trusted by the electors of this community to cast your vote as best you can for the long-term greatest good for the community of Harbor Springs. Thank you.
Philip Lohr in Redmond Township. I wanted to talk a little about PDs too, from the kind of perspective of a designer and developer, because but when you sign a development agreement with a city, it's like a ridiculously onerous thing that a developer is usually very reluctant to do and wouldn't really want to do unless they have to do it in order to build what they want to build. And I mean, if we do the 10-acre thing, like we're pretty much talking about a planned development being possible in the one parcel that is on the west side of town, which I've had the pleasure of working with the owner to discuss a huge number of potential ways that we could develop it. If we go ahead and make it basically impossible to do a planned development, then our only way of developing it may be to just do a typical kind of subdivision type of thing. And, you know, like, I don't want to do this, but you could slice it into 30 slices. You could build 30 10,000 square foot houses. You could make them modern cubes. You could do vinyl siding. You know, the community wouldn't have any input on that whatsoever. All of the things that we would want to do that would require a planned development are the things that I really want to do, which is to, you know, preserve ecology and, like, you know, shuffle around the design so that it can be more beautiful and more gracious, and make it so we can have some public offerings. Like, we want to do a a community learning kitchen, like that's a use that we would have to have a plan development to do, because under the current zoning, we wouldn't really be able to do it. So with a plan development, we could offer the beautiful things that we want to offer to the community. Without the plan development, we can basically just, develop it into houses. And, when you're developing the language, it has to kind of be mutually agreeable between cities and residents who want to have a lot of control over what other people do on their property. And it also has to be somewhat enticing to the developers themselves in order to actually want to go for it and go through the really, really expensive, really arduous, and really long process of being in a development agreement with a city. And I think that where the planning commission has come down is already really good. I mean, there's density caps, there's a whole bunch of whatever, everyone's said what we have a number of times. I think it's already really good. I know that we don't want to just sit around and wait for years or months or whatever longer before we even know what we're able to do. I know it's a really important decision to make, but the planning commission was unanimous, plus their extra points that they put in. I think it's really ready. I think our city is really ready, and I know that there's a few disagreements left, but some of the people who have disagreements have already gotten the code almost exactly where they wanted it, and the compromises I think are really good. So I hope that you do vote for it tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak at this time?
Linda Rockwitz, 519 East Third Street. I've given this more thought than I give a lot of things, but it seems to me it comes down to the question of risk. If Carter's point is, if we don't have totally objective requirements, we risk maybe getting sued. On the other side, like Philip was just saying, if we leave some space for creativity, if we give that up, if we give up the opportunity for something different, then we're risking having something wonderful and good for the whole community. And I guess, often it comes up that we don't want Harbor Springs to become Aspen. And I'm all in on that. We don't either. But I also don't want it to become bathing. I don't want to roll up the streets in November and turn off the water and come back in May. I want a thriving year-round community that's open to creative ideas that will be good for the entire community, summer residents, part-time residents, full-time residents. And I think that this zoning code has achieved that. It has enough onerous expectations. I didn't plan this, as you can see, I'm mumbling around it here. I didn't plan to talk either, Mark. But there are strict requirements in it. So I also urge you to pass the code tonight. Thanks.
Next, anybody else? Anybody want to comment from the board here? I don't think we're here to pass anything tonight. This is supposed to be a meeting for input.
I'm ready to discuss it.
I think you have to close the public hearing.
I would need a motion to close public hearing.
I'm going to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Wendy Reed,
I'm just checking to see, was there anybody left on Zoom or anybody left wanting to speak?
I didn't see any more hands up, no.
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Tom Graham. Yes. Close the public hearing at 8:11.
I have one more question. Devil's advocate. 3 stories versus 2.5 stories in the CBD. With Bay Street and Third Street being different elevations, does it matter if it's 3 stories or 2.5 stories?
I think the bigger key is there's, regardless of the story height, there's a height limit of the building.
No, I get that. But beyond that, what, play devil's advocate on why we should do 3 stories or 2.5.
Microphone.
Sorry. Do I have to say it again?
No, that's okay.
If you hear, sorry.
I think the planning commission discussed the stories at great length. And they decided to set the standard at 35 feet, the same as the single family residential.
No, that I understand.
But there's no provision in the code to take elevation or grade change into consideration. So it's 35 feet wherever the property is at, with an extra 42 inches on top for mechanical.
And I understand all of that. I just am looking for devil's advocate on why does it matter if it's 3 or 2.5? If that,
It really is up to the property owner and the architect.
Isn't there, how would, I guess this is sort of answering, but I don't know that it really is. I'm not the expert, but it seems to me that aren't there going to be, somebody can say they want to do anything, but they've still got to go through the county building codes, correct?
Correct, and they have.
And isn't that going to establish certain, like, minimum heights on a floor or room needed between floors?
Fire suppression requirements.
Those kinds of things. So what I like about the foot requirement, the number of feet, is that it says, this is as high as it's gonna go. And you figure out what you wanna do in that building, in that height. How that to me is so I guess I can't see why we need a story limit if we've got an absolute height limit, because I'm not even sure you could fit 3 stories
The planning
in
commission.
35 feet.
The planning commission discussed this at length. And during the preparation of both the first repealed code and then the second. If you specify stories without specifying height, then somebody could say, I'm gonna build a 45-foot high 3-story or a 50-foot high. The planning commission decided to cap the height at the same height as the surrounding neighborhoods, 35 feet. And then they'll leave it up to the property owner, the architect, how they want to design the building. If they design the building with a traditional retail space, which is usually 14 or 15 feet ceiling height, then you're probably gonna end up with a 2-story building. But the other part of this is that in the downtown development overlay standards, there are provisions in there relative to making sure that the building is compatible with its surroundings, facades are compatible, the articulation of the facades compatible. So there are other provisions in the ordinance that would help manage how the building would be built. But planning commission was reluctant to go with stories because that's pretty arbitrary. And they said, we're just going to cap it at 35 like the surrounding. So that was the decision, 35 feet. And we stayed away from stories.
One of the comments that's come up quite a bit tonight is that this, anything we do tonight, we're stuck with for 50 years. And that's simply not true.
But I'm sure it's only lasting 05 to now, so why should this last 50?
Well, that's part of it. And the fact is that we passed the zoning ordinance in May of 24 that was repealed 6 months later. So we're back to something else. So it's not like we've been looking at the same zoning code for even the last 2 years. So I think to suggest that we can't change this that anything we do is doom and gloom for 50 years is, I just find that a very, I don't understand that kind of a view of things. And that's really my concern with that is, it's not a permanent document. It can be changed regularly. The Planning Commission meets at least every month during the year. The Planning Commission can certainly look at things all the time based on conditions. I mean, I'm assuming, well, number one, I don't think we're all gonna ever agree on all the parts of the code. Let's face it. So, but at some point, we all have to compromise, and there may be things that we don't agree with that we feel like, okay, we've got a good document, a good something to start with. Let's work with it and see how it works. And then if we need to make a change, if we potentially see a problem, I just, I guess that's one of my issues with the argument about this being something we're going to be stuck with for a long time. And I think any of the people, most of the Planning Commission that was on that passed this is on the new commission with just a few changes. So I think they're perfectly capable and I think willing, if there's a change that needs to be made, to address it and to deal with it.
No, I think those are really good points, and I truly feel that when we look at the zoning code, the draft, whatever version, it's an ever evolving document. You know, if we look at the version that we've had, 2005 was the last big revision that we had. But originally we adopted it in 1976. There have been over 200 revisions to the zoning code in that time that we've had it. So it is ever evolving to meet the needs of our community as our community changes and grows, and we see different things, right? So very true. You know, even when we adopted the 2024 code, in the 6 months that was active, we found 1 or 2 sections. It's like, oh, we could word this better and we could modify this. And I'm sure regardless of what document we end up coming up with, whether it's this exact version, the modified version based on the memos, or some other version that we come up with over time, we will always find things that need improving, things that need to be changed. And we will make those changes as needed to best keep with what the community needs.
I have a few other comments. I read through all the letters that we got. I read through all the letters that we got from various people, many members of We Love Harbor Springs, other community members. I don't know how many of them were actually voters. Several identified that they were not and did not live here year round. What I think is interesting as the comments that have come back regarding the plan development and the standards that are set and how many of those standards have to be met and whether those are subjective or objective. It seems to me that when it comes right down to it, people in the comments that they wrote to us weren't necessarily objective standards that they were looking at for anything. Basically, there were a lot of cliches, and I heard the same words, read them over and over. A code should reflect our values of stewardship, scale, character, and balance. I have no idea what objective standards. That Harbor Springs is special, which it is. We need to protect its character and maintain its charm. And yet, we're also saying, but we need all these other things. And I'm not sure, I keep asking, how do you define charm and character? And I haven't heard a really good definition yet. So I really did try to read all the letters and to understand the kinds of comments. I know there are people that are concerned that we're acting rashly, that the PC is tired of the subject and that we're, you know, we're ready to move on and therefore we're taking shortcuts here. But I really don't believe that. And I think we've got a change in the wording for the Administrative Review Committee. We're here tonight, we've got the changes that John Icoangeli put together and that the Planning Commission reviewed and approved, I believe, that were a result of the comments from Lene Wells. There are some of those that it did not adopt, but I think those were a matter of opinion. I did not. And that's what I would expect from our planner that we have worked with and for several years and relied on. We are looking for his opinion on these things, and the council agreed, and the Planning Commission agreed and viewed those items and made the changes they thought were necessary. So I've like I said, I've read this and I've gone over it several times. I'm sure we've all been to lots of meetings. I don't see any reason that the council cannot consider this plan as it was presented with the two suggestions added, the two documents added. So that's why I'd like us to consider it tonight.
I don't know the rules.
So if you want to make a motion, if you want to make a motion to adopt,
Since no one else wants to make a comment,
to adopt the
absolutely,
code,
I will make a motion to adopt the code as presented by the Planning Commission with the changes on the Administrative Review Committee and the other changes that Mr. Icoangeli proposed in November.
those 8 pages of documents.
Now,
I wasn't done with discussion. You
Mhm.
the only person who talked.
oh, well, great, go, sure,
Because I've got them all written down.
I've got a motion. So we can either withdraw or I need a second motion and then potentially amend them.
I'll second.
So now we can open up for discussion.
Okay. We have 16 city residents who sent us letters telling us to hold. We have 6 out-of-city residents or area residents who said hold. And we had 8 people tonight who took the time to come here and tell us that they think it's great and to pass it. But that's 16 to 8.
Oh, no. That's ridiculous.
So, and then it's 16 to 60. And so if we send it back to that, are you done? Can I talk now?
she has the floor, tell them.
Go ahead, Wendy.
If we said one last chance at the Planning Commission, send it back, you get one more crack at it, and then we're done. So we delayed it, what, until the next Planning Commission meeting, which is in 2 weeks? You can't, I don't believe you can start construction on anything right now because we have 3 feet of snow on the ground and the ground is frozen. So we're not holding anybody up. But just to make sure that everybody ends up as pleased as they can possibly be after we put all of this time and effort into it, and to not carry it over the line at the very end because of 2 weeks. That I'm like, give it more 2 weeks, and you have your last chance at crack at the Planning Commission to, because
How
I
many
just
more-
made a change tonight.
How many more time are we going to have this put off? How many more times is somebody gonna say, oh, it went to the Planning Commission, gee, I think we need another public hearing. Let's extend this again. It could go on and on. We've seen it before. I guess that's my concern.
I also don't think that we're just holding people back as far as breaking ground. I think we're holding people back on submitting applications and getting to the planning commission. And so I agree with Kathy that I think we should vote on this tonight.
Jimmy, can we vote on this or this meeting, just for information discussion only, like the public hearing said?
Well, I think I guess my view is you could vote on it.
Okay. Any more comment?
You think we should?
I didn't.
I think we need to vote, yeah. Motion
Gotta
and
do it.
second.
I'm the scaredy cat in this whole thing, but I think there's overwhelming support and I think people have waited and waited. And I think we've had our questions answered. And I think if we tweak what we need to tweak as the time goes on, we need to understand it is a working. There are things that scare me, but there's always going to be something. I didn't think we would vote on it tonight, but I think we have a lot of support to go forward tonight.
Any other comments? Be ready to vote.
I have a motion by
I-
Bob. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I also think that the planning commission sent it to us. They voted unanimously. I don't know that we're gonna get anything else by sending it to the planning commission. They sent it to us and asked for us to do something, so.
And that's partly what I'm suggesting is that they sent it to us, they've sent us the revisions that they know about that have been discussed over several weeks, actually. So it seems to me that we've addressed the shortcomings that we see right now. And I don't hate to take any more time with the planning commission.
You ready?
Let's clarify just a little bit. So there is an ordinance in the packet that sets forth what if you're going to consider this for adoption tonight, I would want a motion to approve the ordinance that's in the packet. Adopting the zoning code of October 21, 2025. With amendments as proposed by Beckett and Rader in a memorandum that was discussed tonight and presented to the council. And along with that, a change. Okay, that memorandum is dated November 20th, 2025. And I would, the only other clarification I guess I would like is, are you also approving the amendments that Mr. Iacongeli proposed on January 5 of 2026?
Yeah.
That's today.
That was, yes.
Okay, and then what about in terms of the Administrative Review Committee, Jeff made a comment about refining the language. Are we dealing with that in this motion?
My understanding, Jeff, when you said that, is you were referring to the language in this email that we got dated today, or memo, I'm not sure.
My notes from the previous conversation stated that maybe it would be good, according to Jeff Grimm, to include if the Administrative Review Committee did not have a consensus of the entire committee, then it would, if one person wanted to kick it back to the entire PC, that language should be in there. And I think that was what was discussed 45 minutes ago.
And no.
Is that part of your motion?
I mean, are we in agreement that what you were talking about was this?
Yes.
We'll include that.
Okay, and this would be included, yes.
So John, you can prepare a revised version.
Yes, for your review.
With that, I think as long as that's the motion.
And it can include all three of those things then.
Yes, 3 changes that we've just outlined here. And now you are going to amend your motion to include those.
Is that your intent?
I thought I had that included in my motion to begin with.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't consider that amending my motion. I
Just to complete it
Yes.
for the language. Go ahead, Kyle.
There was just that third thing about the review committee, if it wasn't consensus, that was sort of the thing that's not in writing. That needs to be clarified, but the other two documents are in writing. That was a suggestion that John will include that or redraft that to include that conversation.
Yes, Karen.
Sorry, just one moment on
Public comment.
Well, you know, as we are no longer short-term rentals, and I just want to bring that up.
So we're all in agreement on what the motion is, correct?
Yes.
All right.
So I have a motion and a second, and everybody's in agreement. I will do a roll call. Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
No,
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Wendy Reeve,
No.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So I think we're done for tonight. We need a motion to adjourn. Oh, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.